Merry meet and welcome. Today we're going to be doing some level 1 Sims mac and cheese. So they do cook theirs over the stove, so that's what we're going to be doing today. We'll do a fancier mac and cheese when it gets to the Friends one, because there's Chandler's Righteous Mac and Cheese. So we'll do that fancier baked version then. For now, what we're doing to get started, we have 2 burners going. You can either prep this cheese separately and do it a different day and then just do the pasta on another day. I'll talk a lot more about the cheese in just a minute, but the cheese does need half a cup of cashews boiled for about 30 minutes or soaked overnight. And then when it comes to water, so you want to just make sure that there's enough water. I've had it boil out of water and added more, and then just allow that to continue to like soften up the cashews, because that's what you're wanting. You're wanting the cashews to be able to turn into that creaminess and liquefy essentially. So with that, we're getting that started, and then since we're also doing the pasta, we also have some it's starting to heat up, so I didn't burn myself, but definitely like didn't need to touch that. So we have a pot of hot water heating up with a few teaspoons of salt. I'm not good at guessing or figuring out exactly how much salt to put into pasta, especially because you can then put you manage your salt levels with the sauces that you're putting as well. So just definitely do as needed or whatever feels best for you, and you can play around with that. That's all we're doing. I'm just here to show you a little bit more like simple things. But yeah, so once our water gets boiling, we'll go ahead and put in our pasta as well as some oil, but we'll check in with you soon. Merry meet and welcome back. So here we are. We obviously have both of our waters boiling, so we're gonna have the cashews boiling for half an hour, which will definitely give our pasta plenty of time to cook and cool. So with this boiling, we're gonna go ahead. I personally eyeball this because like it's just how thick your sauce is gonna be on your pasta. So, and I'm gonna use this pasta for more than just this mac and cheese right now. So that's why I'm going to just cook. I'm meal prepping. I will say, so what I do try to do when I eyeball it, because obviously I have water in there, so I'm eyeballing both of them because you just don't want it to take up all of the water. So there we go. It's probably about 2 cups if I'm being honest. And now what we're going to do is add some oil. So I like to add the oil because I don't know if you guys ever saw or read the book Twilight, because I actually don't think it's in the movie. Sorry, I'm moving things out of my way. Thank you for being here. But anyways, so I'm just stirring to help incorporate the oil. So in Twilight, in the book, it comments on like how bad her dad is at cooking pasta, that like it ends up, and it's spaghetti, and it ends up as like a ball all wrapped, like twined in itself. I've never seen pasta do that, but I do believe it does do that. But I think the whole reason why I've never seen it, I know this is elbow, but is because I always add oil. And then I did hear from someone that they're like, you add oil so that the starches don't stick together and they instead stick to the oil. So this oil will be fully incorporated with the pasta as well. It also could be that it'll just give really good taste, give that olive oil taste to it. And then of course we have the salt in there to make sure that it's seasoned. So yeah, just very interesting, just a little bit of musing around that. The other thing I just wanted to let you know is I am using, this is a quinoa elbow pasta, so it has tons of protein packed into it. That's one of the things that I think is really great about veganizing recipes yourself, is that you can be like, oh, how can I add more protein to that? Because I know that's kind of sometimes a struggle for people, and how can we do it in like nice, easy ways? And plus this turns it into more of a guilt-free meal too, if you're like part of society and like feel bad about eating pasta. So yeah, there's that. And then of course, even more, I've mentioned this before, I really like to make my own cheese because you get to add in more of the, sorry, apologies. We're gonna boil this for 7 to 8 minutes, but until they're like about, until it's cooked pasta. Like, you know what cooked pasta is like. Bite into it, and if you're like, yes, that is something I will eat and that is the perfect texture, Sounds good. So yeah, always just checking in with your pasta. Like cooking is an experience for sure. It's a conversation. Anyways, back to the cheese. So then we get like to add cashews, and we can guarantee that we get protein from that. This cheese I really love because it also has tofu in it, and we'll get into that literally right now. So as this continues to boil, I'm gonna let it be over here for about 7 to 8 minutes most likely, and I'm going to start collecting the items for the cheese. This is the perfect time to do it, or even when you started boiling all of your stuff. And we will have to wait for this to finish, but once it does, we'll go ahead and show you the whole cheesy process. Talk to you soon. Merry meet again. So here we are to actually construct our cheese now. So with this, it gets a little bit easier because it's really just get your ingredients and throw it into the blender, and I love that this recipe is actually super customizable. So to start off with, I have about 1 block of tofu, about 1 block of firm tofu. As you can see, it's still like broke up really easily. And then I've mentioned before, I am not the best at like pressing tofu and getting all the water out. So I always feel like I never get it quite to the as pressed as like others would like expect it to be if they were having a firm tofu. But it's perfect for this recipe, especially because you're still you're going to be blending it up. And even more to that point though, sometimes you need, if it's still a little bit thick, you end up adding water. So this actually just helps you add a little bit more water that just comes from it, so it'll make your cheese a little bit more better fit with your consistency. And then, yep, so I have about 2 of these right here. Well, 2 of these little bowls. But like I said, it's just 1 block of tofu. And then it's going to be 4 tablespoons of a neutral oil. Melted coconut oil is typically my preferred. I'm out right now, so I'm just using our standard olive oil. And then we also have 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. And now we have our 1/2 cup of soaked cashews that we did. So see, just getting all that protein. All right, now this part is very much needed to get that cheesy flavor. This is our nutritional yeast, and we only have about 2 tablespoons here. You can definitely add more or less, and it's a very similar flavor to like Parmesan cheese, so just understand that. And as always, you can blend this up with everything once we continue, right? Blend this up, and then if you want to add more, you can add more. So that's always the way to process through, test tasting it. Now this is where you get to have a little bit of fun. So essentially you're, sorry, my tofu apparently made a mess. Essentially you're looking for different spices. So let's go ahead and start with the salt seasoning. So I'm using, it's the porcini and salt. And so because I need to, one, use this up. So, you know, it's like one of those like novelty items that I got as a gift. And so I want to use it up. It is really good, and I love using it for this recipe because then I love mushrooms, and so it like adds that little extra taste, and I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just going to use a teaspoon of this to, but you want to have a teaspoon of salt of some kind, and that's why I'm using this. As you can see, to save on bowls, I am using my little wooden spoon. Now, to actually get into the fun part, you want to have about 2.5 teaspoons of flavors. So I recommend garlic powder for sure. I think that's just kind of staple to make sure you get like that really good flavor. And since it's only so you want to break it up. So a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then that's what I'm doing here is actually going to be linked below, but that I cannot stress enough that you can just play around with these spices. You can add more, you can add less, you can do whatever you'd like. The main part is after the nutritional yeast, and everything is a lot more customizable. And then another popular one is onion powder. I don't always add this, I just happen to have it on hand today. Otherwise, I typically add like some more greens, like basil, and they're still dried though. So like basil, I like to use the parsley, and I've done oregano as well. But yeah, so I'm going to do a teaspoon of the onion powder as well. And you don't have to follow like the 2.5 teaspoons, right? Again, it's just customizable to your flavoring. This is just a good base. If you're like, oh, I don't know how much seasoning to use, and I had a bad habit / still do of not taste testing while I'm doing stuff. I tend to just like put it out. I don't know if it's from like working in a at a Waffle House where like you don't taste test food before it gets sent out. Like you taste test food because you made it for yourself, but it's still after the fact. You're not tasting it in the kitchen, which is open. So yeah, so I don't know if that's part of the reason why, but anyways, so now I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. So this obviously is going to give it a little bit of a different flavor from like a traditional mac and cheese, but this is just, again, to make it more customizable, and I really kind of wanted this today, and so that's what I'm going for. But again, you can use whatever else you would like. Oh, I don't like dill, so that also isn't why I listed it, but that's also a good seasoning that you can use. So anyways, let's go ahead, get our little 1/2 teaspoon of this smoked paprika and get this all blended. You will of course want to pause in the middle of it, no matter what kind of blender you're using, to push down some of the sides. And here, I can probably take this off real quick to show you, and push down some of the sides so that you can get the chunks down to the bottom. Otherwise you're going to see like how it just like has this, it just sticks to the sides otherwise. But this bottom part is already getting like super nice and creamy. So yeah, we're gonna blend this one more time, and then we're going to get it all situated. This is also a good time to taste test. Be back. All right, so we are almost done, and now we're just going to remove our blades. And I like to use a spatula to make sure that I can carefully remove the cheese sauce on here, because I really want to try to get as much as possible, but I'm also trying to be as safe as possible. So if you have a better method, definitely let me know. Okay, I'm gonna go put this in the sink. So now what I like to do, so this was just one block, so I pretty much base it based off of if you have the tofu and if you have the cashews, as well as the oil technically. But this is only one batch, so sometimes I'll do a double batch if I'm going to be using it a lot. But what I always do, no matter what, is I get at least one jar or container. I normally use a different one. I don't normally use a jar. It's like a glass small container with a lid, a silicone lid. It's so nice. I've used it for so much of my life. Like, they're the best dishes. Anyways, enough about that. So I'll typically use a scoop for this first part, and the reality is, because this cheese is so great, I like to use it to like put on my bread when I'm like making breakfast, or like it's just like a nice little extra treat with the cheese. And then I feel like this makes so much that it is going to be more than enough on my pasta. So if you're like, well, I want that to be super cheesy, you can use all of this on it and it will be super cheesy. It's so good. I'm not even gonna fill this up all the way because it's a bigger container than I normally use. So I'm just gonna fill it up to there, and then we're gonna put the rest of this into our mac and cheese. But yeah, and then this just keeps in the fridge for, I've never had it go bad because I use it up, but I would say I typically use it up within 2 weeks. So that's what we'll say for this. It's so good. I love this. It's so customizable. It's my favorite. I've been using it for years. Alright, so now we get to do the fun part where we tilt our blender and get all of the cheese possible. I'm right-handed, so I'm just gonna switch this around real quick. I'm one of those people who likes to get all of the like top stuff and try to get it all going in one direction before I even get the bulk of it gone. Because I know there's other people who like to get the bulk of it and then they go back for the rest. I just feel like this is more efficient. I'm trying to miss the spoon despite the fact that we literally will be using this spoon. So like I don't need to miss it. But anyways. And we'll probably fast forward through the rest of this. This literally is how much I love this, is I'm like every last scoop. And I'm still going, yeah, I need to get even more of this off of here. There we go, a little bit more satisfied. So let's go ahead and mix this up. So I'm using a bowl that also is a strainer, so that's why I'm tilting it. You definitely don't have to tilt your bowl. But this also is why we're not doing the fancy mac and cheese, because this is pretty much how the Sims do it, over the pot. So this is like us mixing in our cheesy pack. Let's go ahead and grab a bowl. All right, here's our final mac and cheese. Of course, we're about to mow down on this because I already know I love it. It's actually a lot cheesier than I thought, even with me saving that jar, because again, it makes so much. I love this cheese recipe. I'm actually going to elevate my mac and cheese because I have some leftover barbecue jackfruit, and so I'm going to put that on top of here and have me a little bit of a Southwestern style mac and cheese. I maybe will cut up some peppers and put them in here too, but I already know this is so good and I know I'm going to enjoy it. Definitely let me know your thoughts and maybe your favorite ways to have your vegan mac. We'll see you guys next time.